Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Well, welcome back. Time for our Impact Interview. Our next guest, another former Nittany Lion, making a huge impact after football. Aaron Maybin was named an All-American defensive end after his 2008 season in State College, the 11th overall pick of the 2009 NFL Draft. Spent 5 years in the NFL and then made the decision to walk away from football to pursue a career as a professional artist, activist, author, educator, and community organizer in his hometown of Baltimore. His art, photography, and writing have all been exhibited in galleries and museums internationally. Aaron, welcome to Nittany Game Week. It is a pleasure to have you with us.
Much appreciated, Todd. Thanks for having me.
So look, there's so much to your story. It's not going to be easy to touch on all of it, but we're going to give it a try, okay? Since leaving Penn State and the NFL, you've returned to Charm City, where you grew up and have made an impact in so many ways. Your post-football efforts really gained notice that when you stood up to demand changes, even in something so basic as heat in classrooms for students. So at your core, what drives the passion, the call to activism to make a difference?
The need, the fact that I grew up in this same community and I was essentially one of the children that was left behind, a desire to see the children that are coming up in that system now have a better way. The fact that I'm raising my children, that I've created in this same school system, and I'm looking to find it transformed for the better, for the generations that follow behind us, making sure that they have opportunities that people like myself and those that I went to school with never had. At the end of the day, we can look at the reality of the world around us and decide that, the world is just lost and people are, unredeemable, or we can look at it and say, this is an opportunity for a reimagining of society, a reimagining of ourselves and how we deal with one another. And I wanted my work to be a reflection of that.
Well, it certainly has been, and you've been what many would call a positive disruptor of this system. In a country where people are looking to divide, you speak so often of unity, love, and hope. You certainly excelled in football and disruption as a pass rusher. But now as you look at the system that has failed in some ways, how much do you relish the challenge daily of creating positive disruption to benefit the young people all around you, benefit the students that you have called an extension of your own children?
I don't know if I relish in it as much as I understand my role and responsibility, and I don't take that lightly. At the end of the day, it's a shame that people like myself with a platform have to use that platform to do what people that are elected to certain positions won't. But, we come from a long history of organizing and galvanizing and grassroots work here in Baltimore City. And I come from a long line of agitators and organizers. So, it's in my blood and it's in the blood of my community that I represent. So I have to make sure that when I'm going out and I'm advocating, I'm doing it from a real place. The reason why I live right in the middle of the trenches where I represent, West Baltimore is my home, and it's where we're doing the grassroots work. It's where we're doing the educational work, but it's also where I call home. So I have to make sure I have proximity to these issues in order to understand how we go about creating sustainable solutions.
Aaron, it's great to see you again. Hey, you lost your mom when you were young. But in your large family, you learned to take on the challenges of so many children in the community. How did your upbringing really set the stage for the values that drive you now?
In so many ways, Scrap. We've had so many conversations even when I was in school, so it would be impossible for me to cover it all now. But in a few bullet points, the arts were always a method that I used to communicate. So understanding that there were so many different layers to me, not just an athlete, but a human being, understanding that my story had so many layers, and so did the kids that I grew up with. So did the families that I grew up next to. So did the communities that I represent today. And a lot of times when you talk about cities and communities like mine, in Baltimore City and Philadelphia and, Chicago and cities across the country that are reflective of the same issues, you don't have a nuanced vision and representation of those cities. You see the worst elements of them, but you don't see the humanity. You don't see the ingenuity. You don't see the people that are organizing and reimagining the society that they want to create. And I wanted to make sure that I used my platform to shed a light on that I wasn't just myself trying to be a reflection of the world that I wanted to see, but I was highlighting the work of others that were doing the exact same thing.
You alluded to your conversations with Scrap, right, when you were a younger man. And, you know, your head coach, Joe Paterno, passed away before he really got to see your vision and the impact that you're having. Based on your conversations you had with him and his influence, what do you think he'd be most proud of as he sees what you're doing for so many people in your community?
Wow, man. That's a great question. I haven't really ever took time to really sit and reflect on that, because honestly, at the point that I left school, you know, me and Joe weren't necessarily in the best of places, and we had such a contentious relationship because I was a young man trying to find himself, and he was a molder of men that saw promise in me, but knew that there were a whole lot of things that I was missing, that he needed to forcefully, you know what I mean, force feed me in order for me to get where he wanted to see me go. I would hope and I would pray that I had become a reflection of the young man that he saw promise in when he first sat in my parents' living room and told me, you know, that he saw something in me. I would hope that I've stayed true to some of the values that he helped to instill in me, as well as the gentlemen that are sitting directly next to you. I would hope that the example that I was able to see in his going about things on a day-to-day, about his business, making sure that he was involved in every nuanced area, you know what I mean, of the realm that he had responsibility to and control over. That's the way I try to operate now in the work that I do. And I'm really appreciative, as much as we went through the highs and lows, I'm appreciative of every one of those life lessons. I'm thankful for the time that we were able to get together, and I'm hopeful that at some point we are reunited and I'm able to sit at his feet and, you know, hear how he perceives the work that I've done.
Man, you're killing me, Aaron. I'm getting emotional here. You know, in your work, is there one story that really stands out in your mind about a student or a group of students where you ended a day and you knew you really got it through them, that they really benefited from what you're doing? Maybe it was something they said to you, or maybe it was a child whose arc of learning was altered drastically upward by you. But is there that, you know, is there one moment or moments that really get you to this day?
There's so many, but the thing that will never get old to me is the same way I look at my children. As I said before, you know, I look at the kids that I teach and that I mentor and that I work with at, you know, our rec center that we opened here in West Baltimore. We do so many things just hoping that we plant so many seeds just hoping they will take root. And you understand this as a coach, you know, through your history in your career. You don't know what seeds will actually bear fruit, but you hope that they come to fruition at some point during your lifetime and you can see that you've had an impact. Every single time one of our kids that, let's say they were failing a class or they were struggling in a class, but when progress reports or report cards come out and I see them running into our doors to show me the results of all of their hard work, that right there is all of the food and gasoline that I need to continue revving this engine. You know what I mean? Because I would like to be able to give you the few success stories that we've had, but it's a long grind. It's thankless work. It's stuff that nobody really sees on a day-to-day basis, that nobody really appreciates. But when the kids themselves realize that they break through a barrier and they've been working hard towards this goal for some time, the same way every single time in practice that you get something wrong, you're working towards the day that this is just body muscle memory. You know, this is a mistake that you don't even make because you're so dialed in to what you know and what you understand. When you see kids making that transition in life and understanding that it's a result of the things that you've done through planning and preparation. You know, we pay a math tutor just to come to our facility and be there during after school hours, 4 days a week. You know what I'm saying? I'm there every single day from about noon to about, 6:30 p.m. Just so that any kid that's there, we're drilling on the things that they're weak in. We're drilling on the things that they're deficient in. We're drilling on the areas where they're struggling, whether that be in academics, in athletics, or in their personal life. And then when we see that actually translate towards the grades, towards them changing their behavior in the household, towards how they are acting in the community and behaving, that's what really matters. Because those are the things that as time goes on, they'll carry with them. And they'll be beacons of light for others in their life through the lessons that you teach.
Aaron, you were a product of a Penn State program that wanted to develop the complete person. How much has that remained a part of you when you walk into a classroom or you take on the system?
So much. The fact of the matter is, in a city like the one that I come from, you learn how to be a rebel, but you don't really know what you're rebelling against. You're a kid, you growing up in an area where you know that things aren't right. You know that there are disparities. You know that there are injustices. And I was just having my mind opened up to all of these things. Like, think about it like this. By the time I get to Penn State, as somebody who grew up in the inner city of Baltimore and, was a terrible student until basically I was in high school. And now I'm in high school in this privileged, affluent area, predominantly white. And I realized that I was never a bad student when I was in the city. We were just never invested in. I never had new books. I never had computers. I never had classrooms that weren't overcrowded. I never had tutors. I never had resources that make education easier. And at the end of the day, I was being measured by the exact same measuring stick as the kids that I was going to school with in these privileged areas. And then I go to Penn State and I realized that there's another tier. There's another tier of information. There's another tier of connectivity, resources, networking that the people that live where I came from will never have access to if not given the opportunity. But nobody's running around the places that I come from handing out opportunities. You know what I mean? Like when you have that understanding and you realize that the deck is stacked against everybody in the areas where we dwell, it's incumbent upon you to go back to that area and bring whatever resources you have to bear and say, look, this is what I've seen. This is what I've been exposed to. This is what I've done. Let me bring these resources back and share them with everybody that I see promise in that can take this and multiply it. We just don't see enough examples of that. And we wonder why our kids don't perform to the same level. We act like there's something wrong with them. It's something wrong with this system. And it's not until I got to college and through my relationship with Joe, through my relationship with LJ Scrap, I was the rebellious kid that was kind of whipped into submission, you know what I mean? And I had to figure out why I was rebelling. I had to figure out what I was rebelling against. And then I had to figure out the solutions. Because it's great to be a rebel, but you have to know how you're fighting. You need to know why you're fighting. So now, in my life today, I walk through life with that understanding, with that bird's eye view. And I understand that not every fight needs to be fought the way that you think that I would want to fight it. Sometimes there's another way. Sometimes it needs to be more organized, more calculated. That's something that I got way back at Penn State. It taught me, and at the same time I was in college, so I was taking classes about the situation, about the condition that I came back from. So I understood more about life, more about my surroundings and my environment. And then I could start to learn how to address those issues.
Aaron, you were a first-round draft pick. Where's football fall into your life at this point? I mean, and how does it fall into your life? I mean, it may open some doors still when you're trying to talk to someone and maybe you have to drop it in there. Maybe you've put it in the past completely because you've done an amazing job. We're 15, 20 minutes into this. We haven't even talked football yet with you, right? Because of so many things that you're doing. So where does it fall in your life? How do you utilize it, I guess, today? And how do you view it just in general?
I would be lying if I acted as if it's non-existent. I mean, football is the reason that we're all speaking right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Obviously that was our connection at a certain point, and we've all done greater things and expanded our platforms. But at the end of the day, that was what brought us all here. You know, I was football in my life. Football was always a huge priority for me. It was always the vehicle by which I saw me being able to change my family's life for the better. But it was never the sum of who I was as a person. And that was a space that was difficult for me to traverse for a while, because people are used to seeing guys that grow up their whole life dedicated to a sport, but they're not used to seeing guys that grew up their whole life dedicated to multiple things. The arts, you know what I mean? Culture, sociology, you know what I mean? Like the human condition, all of these things were things that interested me, but I was a part of a new generation of athlete. Like when I was coming up, I was in the same class with guys like, you know, Myron Rolle. People had never seen guys like us before that had goals far beyond football. But we realized at a certain point in time that we were the masters of our own fate. You know, we were the captains of our soul. We were the ones that had the ability and the vision that other people couldn't see in us, even though there were certain things that we hadn't figured out about life yet. We still knew that we were on a different path, you know. So football in my life now is still important. You know, I still mentor guys. I still, you know, train certain guys. You know, it's just not my focal point. It's not at the forefront. It's way on the back burner somewhere. You know, I enjoy my football on Sundays where I can sit and watch my teams go at it, watch the guys that I still know in the league that I'm following what they're doing. But I'm focused on the work that at the end of the day in my mind matters the most. You know, if I passed away right now and the best thing that somebody could say about me was he was a great football player, that means that I wasted a lot of time in life. I have to focus on the things that actually are going to change the world around us for the better.
Fantastic stuff.
Could not have said it any better. Aaron, so proud and so happy to see you're doing so many great things.
It's fantastic. We had some good discussions, didn't we, Aaron, over the course of time?
Man, so many. And like I said, those were a lot of the things that helped to groom me into who I am today. So I'm eternally grateful to you, Jay, to you, Scrap, to the whole coaching staff at that point, to your dad, to your mom. Like, everybody played their role, you know, everybody planted seeds, you know, and I hope that I've been a good steward of those lessons. I hope that, you know, I continue to make all of Nittany Nation proud. You know, you guys are a huge part of my story, and I'm eternally grateful.
That's really cool stuff. And I know I speak for these guys when I say, look, we get to have a lot of fun. We get to talk about football, right? Break down highlights, all that stuff. But this is easily the best part of our week when we get a chance to talk to you guys, the former players that are out there doing all this work in the community. So keep it up. Keep up the great work.
Absolutely.